Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Jared. This is Guns and Gadgets, your go-to place for news, analysis, and commentary on Second Amendment issues, firearms law, and what's really going on in America's gun rights landscape. If this is your first time here, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you don't miss anything. I put out videos every day, often multiple times a day, so check back often and drop us a like if you're ready to dig deep into today's story. Today we're talking about something big, a leaked internal memo from the United States Postal Service that's been confirmed authentic about how they're handling firearms carry on postal property. That's right, we're talking public buildings, the right to armed citizens to be armed, on federal policy, all converging in one story here. So stay tuned because we're going to unpack what this memo says, how it came about, and what it means for you, me, your neighbors, your friends, your family, and how you as a gun owner should respond. And yep, let's take a moment here to thank our sponsor. Patriots, let me ask you something very serious. If a grocery store shuts down, will you and your family be okay? 78% of Americans would go hungry in a 3-day emergency. That's why you should stock your pantry with Ready Pantry. We've all seen how fast things can go sideways. We have all witnessed it firsthand, from a major hurricane parking itself over the mountains here in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina, to supply chains being stretched thin, to economic collapse, even government shutdowns and pandemics. You name it, we've all seen it, and recently too. That's why I trust Ready Pantry, and you should as well. Ready Pantry is an American-based company offering 25-year shelf-stable food and drinking water that lasts up to 50 years. They're delivering the freshest products sold in the industry, and they've been packaged within a few months of being delivered to your home. Real ingredients, real calories, real nutrition. Not that warehouse stale stuff that some companies sell that's been sitting on shelves for a decade. They include meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they even come with dessert. They all taste amazing, and you can rest assured that all products are sourced right here in America. Plus, you get peace of mind knowing that you have an emergency food supply and emergency water ready should something happen in your area, in your neck of the woods. Ready Pantry makes it simple. Choose 72-hour, 1 week, or a 1-month supply, and bulk drinking water from single stackable cases, which I have off camera. I forgot to bring it over here. All the way up to full pallets full of them. And here's the best part. Buy now, pay later is available. They're offering up to 20% off long-term packages, and you get an additional 10% off and free shipping when you use my code GNG10 at checkout over at readypantry.com. Patriots prepare, victims panic. Stock your pantry today at Ready Pantry. All right, let's dive in here. Here's the background for your knowledge, stuff that you need to know. In October, I've covered it here on the channel, a federal judge found that the prohibition on possessing firearms on certain United States Postal Service properties was unconstitutional for customers, not employees. Well, here's what the judge ordered. Both the USPS regulation and the federal statute were both unconstitutional as applied to carrying firearms in ordinary post offices on postal property. Now, the court granted declaratory relief, meaning it officially declared these laws invalid in this context. The court also issued a permanent injunction stopping the government from enforcing these bans against the plaintiffs, as well as SAF, Second Amendment Foundation, and FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition members, as it pertains to the possession and carrying of firearms inside of ordinary post offices and the surrounding post office property. Then things got a little interesting. A memo that was leaked from the Postal Service, dated October 24th to 25, kind of raised some eyebrows. It gave guidance to postal retail employees on how to respond if a customer is carrying a firearm. And the USPS has confirmed that the memo is authentic. So what we've got here is not just a court ruling, but a federal agency's internal reaction and how they plan to implement it. The story's huge for gun owners because it touches on where you can carry your Second Amendment right, your firearm, how federal buildings treat those rights, and how agencies are forced to respond when a court says, no more bans here. I find this memo very interesting. Let me know what you think. down below, here's the memo. You can see the start date was October 20th, the completion date was the 23rd, and the activity description and the number there for your reference, but it's the firearms policy and the court ruling. We'll go down to the activity detail. It says Retail Service Talk, October 20th, 2025. USPS provides guidance on customers carrying firearms on postal retail property. Remember, this looks kind of shady, but it has been confirmed authentic. A federal court order currently permits certain postal customers to carry and possess firearms at most post offices, including in customer parking lots. In response to that decision, and while we work to clarify the precise scope of the court's orders, we are providing the following guidance to all of our retail employees at all Postal Service retail facilities regarding all of our customers at those facilities. Because of this decision, there may be instances in which members of the public who are visiting Postal Service retail facilities to pick up their mail or conduct a retail transaction will be carrying firearms. Postal Service employees are directed to refrain from confronting or engaging with the customer about the fact that they are carrying a firearm. Postal Service employees should allow the customer to conduct their business in the same manner as other customers. Once the customer leaves, immediately report the matter to your supervisor or manager. Management employees should immediately call the inspector service hotline, and the inspection service will then determine whether the ban on firearms possession can lawfully be enforced under the circumstances and whether further action is justified. Calls to local enforcement, 911, should only be made if the person is interfering with operations or if the customer is acting in a manner that raises immediate safety or security concerns. The court's decision does not affect the ban on firearms possession by Postal Service employees on postal property, which remains fully in place. Employees are reminded that carrying or storing firearms on Postal Service property is prohibited and can result in discipline up to and including removal from the Postal Service. The prohibition on employee possession of firearms also means that storing firearms in vehicles that are parked on postal property is also prohibited. Thank you for your attention to this Communist Manifesto. Yeah, I added the last part there. So they acknowledge that a federal court order currently permits certain postal customers to carry and possess firearms at most post offices, including in customer parking lots. Well, actually, it's a thing called the Constitution. You should probably read it sometime. They then go and tell retail employees not to engage or confront the person about the firearm. Yeah, good, because you're not a cop and you don't supersede my rights. And then they say, let the customer proceed like any other customer. Well, that's because we are like any other customer. And then once we leave, employees should immediately become Karens and report the matter to a supervisor or a manager. Here's a news flash for you while I drink my bougie cappuccino today. Y'all didn't know that most people have been carrying guns there anyway. Yeah, our rights extend everywhere in this country. But then management must immediately call the inspection service hotline to determine whether that ban on a firearm possession can lawfully be enforced under the circumstances and whether further action is justified. Now, that's what it says there. But they're telling employees to call the cops on you for doing nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. The inspection service is the postal police. It's very interesting. Like I said, I find this very interesting. What do you think? Here's some more info for you. The self-proclaimed most 2A-friendly Department of Justice ever has asked the court to clarify that the injunction, meaning the restriction on the government from enforcing this unconstitutional law and regulation, should only apply to the named plaintiffs in the lawsuit, meaning that they don't want it to apply to everyone everywhere because Americans shouldn't have their rights, just the couple people who sued. Interesting. Now, if you are confronted by a postal employee, stay calm. Stay calm. They want us to look bad. The memo says employees should not engage and should report it after the fact. If you are ever asked to leave or you're challenged, remain peaceful. and ask to speak to the manager. Document your interaction. And if you're a Second Amendment Foundation or a Firearms Policy Coalition member, call them. Now, this might be a rare scenario, but it's good to be prepared. I'm thinking it's not going to be a big deal, but don't be that person that makes the national headlines for flipping out and gives the Judge Reed O'Connor, who's one of our few good ones in the country, reason to limit that down to just a few people, that injunction. So stay plugged into the legal outcomes here. The Department of Justice, remember, they're saying we're the most pro-2A DOJ ever. Not a very high bar. They said it, not me. But they have requested to narrow the injunction, meaning this could be rolled back or limited because they love the Second Amendment so much. So keep following this case, keep following this channel. Here's the broader picture. The memo here and the underlying court decision represent a strategic win for the Second Amendment community. Why? Because it restores the Second Amendment. It doesn't add gun rights, doesn't expand gun rights. It restores a right that's been taken away by chipping away at one more gun-free zone instituted by the government on government property where firearms are effectively banned. And that environment is a target-rich environment. Each one of these zones where self-defense becomes taken away from you under a law passed by some lawyers is a bad area, and we're trying to get rid of all of them. We're trying to get rid of all of them. Now, this forces a federal agency here, the USPS, to update its policy, even if it's quietly. And when a federal agency acknowledges that the ban may not be enforceable, that sends ripples across other agencies and locations. It underscores the importance of litigation. The court ruling, backed by organizations like Second Amendment Foundation and Firearms Policy Coalition, leveraged the judiciary to make this happen. Now, that's the same playbook being used in major magazine capacity cases, as well as so-called assault weapon bans, and anything else we have going on right now. There's a big push to get a lot of cases to the Supreme Court after Bruin. So stay tuned. For the audience here on Guns and Gadgets, if you love this type of news, subscribe to the channel. Double check your subscription. This is exactly the kind of story that we cover here. Not just the flashy headlines, but the policy shifts, the subtle internal memos, the quiet moves behind closed doors, or anything else that helps to restore our ability to exercise our Second Amendment. And remember, rights don't come from the government. The Second Amendment doesn't give us this right. It acknowledges a pre-existing right. So your attention to these issues matter a lot. All right, folks, thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive. Share this video with your fellow gun owners. Let's spread awareness. Drop a comment down below and let me know, have you visited your local post office with the carry firearm since the memo is leaked? Some of us have been doing it all along. And what response, if any, did you get? I'd love to hear your experiences. If you enjoyed this kind of analysis and want to see more, then hit the subscribe button. Welcome home. Guns and Gadgets will get you that information every day. Hit the like button and ring that bell so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. My name is Jared. This is Guns and Gadgets, the premier source for Second Amendment news. Stay safe, stay armed, stay ready, and keep defending your rights. Until next time, take care of each other, America. God bless you. Take care.